May I ask for a motion and a second to approve the agenda of our annual organizational meeting?
So moved.
Second.
I'm sorry. Roll call. Mrs. Mogerman.
Mr. Applebaum?
Yes.
Mrs. Castillo?
Yes.
Mrs. Feldman?
Yes.
Mr. Major?
Here.
Mrs. Mogerman here. Dr. Sortino?
Here.
Mr. Jacobs?
Here. And once again, we already had a motion and a second for the approval of the agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And there are none. 4.0, I want to review with you the canvass of the annual school board election results. We had an election on April 3rd, 2012. The election results are as follows in order of appearance on the ballot. Beth Feldman receiving 6,196 votes. Helen Castile receiving 4,977 votes. And Kim Applebaum receiving 6,237 votes. Therefore, the two candidates receiving the highest total of votes, Beth Feldman and Kim Applebaum, shall each serve 3-year terms as Parkway Board of Education members. Orders, the issuance of certificates of election of successful candidates have been issued to each successful candidate. Those should have been, I believe, were already given to Mrs. Feldman and Mrs. Applebaum. 6.0, installation of newly elected members of the board. It will be my privilege to swear them in tonight. Normally it's our secretary, but Carol Calanda is not with us tonight, and so she has given me that opportunity, and it is an honor. And so if you'll join me in front, Mrs. Feldman and Miss Applebaum will give you the promise I won't go fast. You would raise your right hand, and if you would repeat after me, this is the oath of the office. I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Missouri, and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of school director in and for the Parkway School District, County of St. Louis, State of Missouri, to the best of my ability and according to law, so help me God. Thank you very much, and if you now would take your places. This is a little bit odd to us, as Helen has been on the board for 6 years, and we certainly appreciate all that time, and she'll have an opportunity to say something a little later when hopefully there are a few more people here. Helen, in recognition of the 6 years that you've spent with us, and with all the admiration and of your fellow board members, we'd like to make a special presentation to you for those years of service, and hope that when you look at this, you remember that you served well, and not so long really, but with some board members that really appreciate what you've done here. So I'd like to make this presentation to you.
Come up. Come up.
I'm reminded that somebody once said that behind every successful man there's a very surprised mother-in-law. But in your case, you have a wonderful husband who's been very supportive of you over the years, and we've enjoyed some of those occasions when we've been able to be together as spouses too, and I know that you've enjoyed giving that kind of support for Helen, as sometimes she's been away from. So thank you again. 7.0 is the election of officers. And I'm going to present to the board the name of Beth Feldman to serve as the 2012-2013 board president. May I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You have to ask her, were there any other nominations?
Oh, were there any other nominations? Thank you. Apparently there weren't.
You know, you gotta be.
Yes, absolutely. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? The motion carries 7-0. And at this point, I think I am turning the gavel over to you. So if you want, I'll change seats and
We just leave everything here for a
Yeah.
minute? Okay, great.
not quite,
Not quite
haven't
done?
reorganized completely.
Okay, where am I?
Not until you shift the name tags.
Okay, now it's time to take a name for the vice president.
Madam
So-
President,
Yes, Mr. Major.
may I enter Dee Mogerman as candidate for Vice President of the Board?
Thank you very much. Are there any other nominations? Can I have a motion and a second then?
So moved. Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
You
Motion
can vote for yourself, Dee.
I did.
I whispered it, okay?
Motion passes 7-0. And my first official act as the new board president, I'd like to present a gift to Chris Jacob in recognition of his wonderful year of service.
Thank you very much.
Okay, this concludes the organizational meeting. We're adjourned until the regular session begins at 7:30. Thank you. was my first time. How did I do? Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming to the regular board meeting of Parkway Board of Education. I'm calling to order. First, we're going to stand up and do the pledge together. And the flag is behind the band. Oh, thank you. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right, I know, but it's not on here. Okay, now, this is the marching band from Central High, and they're going to play us the national anthem under the direction of Mr. Hoover and Mr. Beasley. Okay. Mrs. Mogerman is going to be taking the notes tonight, so I'm going to ask her to do the roll call.
Mr. Applebaum?
Here.
Ms. Applebaum?
Here.
Mrs. Feldman?
Here.
Mr. Major?
Aye.
Mrs. Mogerman? Here? That's me. Dr. Sortino? Here. Mr. Jacob?
Here.
Thank you.
At this time, I'd like to thank the Marching Colts and the band directors, Mr. Doug Hoover and Mr. Matt Beasley, for that beautiful rendition. Tonight, we have a very special recognition. We're honoring the Parkway seniors who volunteered to serve their country in one of the branches of the U.S. military. This includes service in the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, and Coast Guard, either on active duty or in one of the reserve component forces. First, I'd like to ask Assistant Superintendent Desi Kirchhoffer to introduce our honorees.
Good evening. Before I introduce the students, I'd like to thank several of our board members for their military service. I think we can tell that Mr. Jacob served in the Army, Mr. Major in the United States Navy, and Dr. Sorrentino served in the Air National Guard for 6 years. So we are grateful for all of your service. This is the time of the year when we celebrate the accomplishments of our graduates and we look forward to the next chapter in their lives. While many students are making plans to go to college or perhaps enter the workforce, some of those here tonight are getting ready for boot camp or other similar training as they embark on a career in the military. Some will serve for only a few years, while others will serve for 20 or even 30 years. I know this because I've witnessed many students join the military over the years, and you just never know where their path may lead, as is evident by the three that are in front of us this evening. Some of you will find your true calling through military service. Others will decide to pursue different interests. But I believe each of you will be glad you served and will definitely grow from the experience. And I know that all of us in this room and the Parkway community are proud of you and are grateful for the service you're about to give our country. At this time, if I could ask the board to please stand and come to the front. Students who are here with us tonight, as I call your name, please come forward to be recognized by the Board of Education. Each student will receive a pocket constitution and Declaration of Independence that had been signed by Superintendent Dr. Keith Marty and former board president, as of tonight, Chris Jacob. And each honoree has already received a signed certificate by both those gentlemen as well. Students, please come forward as I call your name. From Central High, Dario Boykin, United States Marines. Samantha Clark, United States Air Force. Samantha, congratulations. William Foster, U.S. Marines. Marcus Holmes, United States Navy. Martinet Wilkerson, United States Air Force. From Parkway South High School, Patrick Baginski, United States Marines. Gabrielle Evans, United States Navy. Marquise Leonard, United States Navy. I think Marquise won for bringing the most fans tonight, right? Oh, yeah, Duran. Jake Lewis, United States Navy. Paul Chabelle, United States Marines. Jaron Straub, United States Navy.
We know we got some people in for Duran in the house. Congrats.
Chad Wolf, United States Army. Anna Yankee, United States Navy. And from West High, Stephen Emdy, United States Naval Academy. Mark Krebs, U.S. Coast Guard Academy. And Joel Levy, the United States Army. Now I'd like to introduce former school board president, Monty Montgomery. Mr. Montgomery is a 1977 graduate of the Air Force Academy. Mr. Montgomery.
Well, it's a privilege to be here this evening. I'd like to thank the Board of Education and Superintendent Marty for this opportunity to help recognize the young men and women of Parkway who are about to enter the service of their country. I routinely have the opportunity to walk past the USO at Lambert Airport, where the new recruits line up on their way to Fort Leonard Wood. What strikes me, what strikes a man of my age about these new recruits is how young they look. But I recently saw a picture of myself as I was about to enter the service. I was 4 or 5 inches shorter and barely looked old enough to drive a car. But the difference with these young people, these young men and women, is they're about to make a very mature decision, a very mature choice. The decision to serve your country is not to be taken lightly, but is also a wonderful opportunity. It's an opportunity to live, learn, and lead like many of your classmates will never experience. So I say to you tonight, serve your country to the best of your ability. Be the best soldier, sailor, or airman that you can be. And it'll be a source of pride for you for your entire life. Finally, on behalf of the citizens of Parkway, and as one citizen of the United States of America, thank you for your service.
This time, I'd like any other folks who had served in the military to please stand. If there's any other, we may have other visitors or employees. And for those of you who have served, thank you for your time. I want to recognize you as well. And now, I would like to invite the Marching Colts to play a medley of military songs honoring each branch of services. Thank you.
Marching Colts. I appreciate you guys taking your time to come honor your fellow students tonight. And thank you to our outstanding students, their families, and principals for joining us tonight. And thank you for our military veterans who have joined us this evening. Thank you to Mr. Montgomery for joining us this evening. We're honored to have you all with us. At this time, we're going to take a brief break, and we will resume our meeting shortly. Thank you. right, we're going to pick back up at 4.0, additions, corrections, and modifications to the agenda. I believe we have an addition of a few personnel items. And then 5.0, citizen statements. First, I'd like to call Mrs. Helen Castile. Yeah. As you probably know, state your name and your address.
I didn't know I was going to be first. Okay.
First, last, and only.
Terrific. Well, you all out there are getting my good side tonight. I brought some inspiration so I can get through this speech. And for those of you who can see it, you'll know who it is. My role model. You all are laughing already. I haven't said anything.
You got to show us the picture, Helen.
What?
You got to show us the
Oh,
picture.
you didn't see it? Okay, first I want to say thank you to our future servicemen and women, as well as those who have served in the past and those who are currently defending our country. I also want to thank those citizens who trusted me enough to vote me into this position for 2 terms, and to those 3,000 plus, whatever it was, who voted for me this time. Only Hillary and I know the true meaning of Passover. I would like to thank Bruce and Chris, who kept me informed while I was recovering from surgery a few years ago, and last year as well. It has been a privilege to work with you these past 6 years. And I thank Tom and his wife, LaDonna, for offering to help me with my signs this year. I'd like to thank Mike Keenest for document delivery, and to the PNEA, the CWA, and the Carpenters District Council for their support. I would also like to say that I am so pleased that I was able to be on the board when we chose Dr. Marty, because I know he's going to do a great job moving Parkway forward. To those of you in the Parkway community who know me well, I appreciated your calls and emails to say that no amount of controversy or lies contained in approximately 20,000 anonymous flyers, which were placed in mailboxes illegally, can diminish my reputation nor discredit my integrity and honesty. Someone owes the post office a lot of money. But I am a survivor, and I always have been, from my high school male counselor, and I'm not going to degrade anybody that's a male, but I just have to say this to put it in perspective, who told me that I couldn't teach history in high school because I was a female and I was too short. From that point to surviving breast cancer for 19 years, surviving lung cancer for 4 years, surviving a tumor on my spinal cord and having bones removed from my back, which made me even shorter, this has been a piece of cake. There are no regrets. So, my congratulations to Beth and Kim, and to everyone who supported me. I made decisions which I hope help the students, the district, and this great community. In the meantime, I will hopefully finish the 3 novels I began 6 years ago. I'm a little slow sometimes. Travel and enjoy my Friday poker games with my 98-year-old mother-in-law. Work on my bucket list and have more time with family and friends. But most importantly, I have been so blessed to have been an educator and counselor for over 40 years. I've helped raise hundreds of children, and that's what teachers do. To all you educators out there, don't let anyone tell you you're not worth it. Keep on doing what you do best, Teach the children, for they are our future. As esteemed writer and poetess Maya Angelou wrote, "You may not think you can reach it, but climb anyway. You may not think you'll be heard. Speak anyway. You may not think you can change things. Try anyway." And finally, I will continue to advocate for human rights, women's rights, and gay rights. And if requested, I will work 24/7 to help re-elect President Barack Obama. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen, very much. We all appreciate your words. 6.0, call for executive session, none. 7.0, approval of agenda for April 11th, 2012. May I have a motion and a second, please?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Resolutions, 8.0. Week of the Young Child, April 22nd through 28th. Public School Volunteer Week, April 15th through 21st. Administrative Professionals Week, April 22nd through 28th. And Administrative Professionals Day, April 25th. Holocaust Remembrance Day, April 19th. National School Principals Day, May 1st. National Physical Education and Sports Week, May 1st through 7th. National Teacher Appreciation Week, May 6th through 12th. And National Teacher Appreciation Day, May 8th. May I have a motion and a second to adopt?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. Communications 9.0. I'm going to call on Mr. Paul Tandy to come talk about Parkway Rockwood Community Education.
There we go. Good evening, President Feldman, Vice President Mogerman, members of the board, Dr. Marty. I'm pleased tonight to talk to you a little bit on a communication item about community education and some potential future opportunities for both Parkway and Rockwood. As we get our slides up and running, I also want to introduce Mr. Mike Seppi. Mike is the Director of Community Education for the Rockwood School District. And we're pleased that Mike could be here tonight. And tomorrow night, Rockwood's having their school board meeting at Crestview Middle School, and I will be there representing Parkway tomorrow night as well. Thank you. Great. So what we'd like to talk to you tonight a little bit is about some planning that we've been doing kind of informally. And what we'd like to do is discuss tonight with you an opportunity to maybe take this forward a little bit more formally in the next few months to look at some potential opportunities for potential partnerships between Rockwood and Parkway in the area of community education. So tonight, really, it's information only. There's no board action required. We just want to talk to you a little bit about where we are. And very quickly, I'm going to talk about the current reality of why we think this might be a good thing to look into. Some advantages that are built into to pursuing this sort of partnering, and some outcomes we'd like to achieve if we were to do it, and kind of the next steps and where we would go from here. You know, as you look at the current reality in the economy, which is of course very difficult, we all know that, we're all feeling it, we do know that as we look at community education, our overall enrollment is projected to be flat or decline over the next 5 years, and given these demographics, really we need to, we can't have just the way we've always done it mentality. We've got to be thinking creatively. And I know from talking to Dr. Marty, he's challenged us continually to look at ways to be more efficient, and in addition to looking at ways to partner with other agencies in the community. So it does fit nicely in that. In terms of outcomes, when we look at the residents we have here in West St. Louis County, we have over 250,000 people. And so there's a real capacity there for lifelong learning and to provide opportunities for all those residents to have opportunities after school in the evenings and so forth through both school districts. We also believe that by partnering together, we may have the opportunity to actually expand the level of programs that would be available to residents in both districts. Of course, we also believe a big piece of it is that if we do this, I think we hope to be more fiscally responsible and to both the district and the patrons. We hope we can save some administrative overhead and minimize duplication of services, creating economies of scale. You know, both programs are self-funded, so no taxpayer dollars go to support them. When we charge a $25 fee for a craft class, you know, after school, that's paying for that program. That's paying for the cost of that program. So we want to continue to do that. But as well, we would like to think that we might be able to find some ways to hopefully generate maybe some additional revenue for both districts. It folds in very nicely under strategic goal number 6 of the strategic plan. Both Parkway and Rockwood share a long-standing belief in community education as a lifelong learning tool for the members of our community. We really, with a few exceptions, we don't have programs that are in direct competition. We actually have areas of strength. If we look at the programming that we do and Rockwood does, there's some areas of strength of both districts that could really match up nicely and provide some really unique services for the members of the community. And as you know, community education is not just for students, it's for adults, it's for all members of the community. So where we are right now is what we would like to do is proceed with some exploratory meetings. We would like to meet with a representative with Learning Resources Network, which is sort of like the professional development arm of community education nationally, to talk to them about best practices and what they've seen in terms of these types of partnerships, to get some insight from them, and also gather maybe some ideas they may have for some areas that which we haven't thought of. But throughout the spring and the summer, we'd like to convene some committees to look at the areas as identified on the screen, for sure the various programming that we do. Also, we need to look at finance, how we would staff such a partnership and that sort of thing. But what ultimately we'd like to come back to you in this fall with a report and any recommendations that we might have. And then if you approve those recommendations, we would begin that in the fall of 2013. So that's a real quick overview of it. Any questions that you have at this point?
Brief comment, more, faster. Thank you.
More, faster, got it.
Madam President, I just want to say, too, having met Mike and both of you and talked with you a little bit, I'm excited about this opportunity to see Parkway and Rockwood try to take something that we do well and make it even better. So you certainly have, I think, our support to get into this area and see what we can do to make it better.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I would just like to say that I'm so pleased. This whole started with just kind of a simple trip that Paul and Mark Stockwell took to discover what Rockwood was doing, and we were kind of invited by Mike to go a little bit farther and see if there was any chance that we could work together. And so I just really think this has so much potential to really be a great partnership. I'm looking forward to the planning. I want to participate in the planning because I think it has so much potential for all our citizens. 250,000 citizens, wow. You know, we could really impact a lot of people and garner a lot of support in both districts for public education and what we're doing.
I might have time to take a class now.
Lots of good ones. Thank you.
Paul. Next, 9.02, calendar of meetings. The next meeting of the Board of Education is scheduled for Wednesday, May 2nd, 2012, at Central Middle School at 7:30 p.m. 9.03, liaison reports. Anyone? Mr. Major?
Just wanted to share that for what was an excruciating spring break for the Oak Brook community, I'm sure everybody heard about the tragedy down there. Charlotte, all the district resources, SSD if there's anybody representing, and certainly Dr. Carey was highly responsive. Chris Shirley and Mr. Helton were on top of things, and the entire staff down there really did an outstanding job. And certainly extra special thanks to Jen Christofferson, the PTO president down there, who was very instrumental given the fact that a lot of administrators were out of town and that sort of thing, and her role was second to none. So thanks to everybody who pitched in, and again, an excruciating time, but made me real proud to be a member of the community, and proud of the way it came together.
Sam? I just have one quick thing, and that is I'd like to give a shout out to the staff here at Parkway. I've got a note here from the Arts and Education Council that I'm just going to read to you for a second. This year, Parkway teachers, administrators, and board members contributed $14,695 to the Arts and Education Council, outpacing last year's total by $1,255. Moreover, 504 contributors participated in the campaign this year, compared to 460 last year. This represents a true commitment by Parkway to our mission to enhance lives through art, and we thank you, the we being the Arts and Education Council, and they've given me a certificate of thanks and appreciation for Dr. Marty. So,
Thank you so much.
okay.
I do have something too.
There's this one thing I want to mention, and I wish I would have taken notes, so I'm going to leave it up to Dr. Papillo to mention it, but the Mosaics Academy did win the Nassau Challenge, and I'm sure she's going to mention it when she comes up. So that's all the information I have. I'm going to leave it to her to fill in the details.
Thank you.
I want to thank this gentleman, Chris Jacob, for his leadership as president of the board.
Hear, hear.
I don't think anyone realizes how much time Chris puts into a full-time job, responsible for his business and all, but the time he spends in Parkway is unbelievable. And what's so great about it, Chris can get up in front of any group and say the right words the right way, and even have some humor to go along with it. So, Chris, thank you so very much for all the time and the leadership you provided this board and what you've done to serve this community. We appreciate it very much.
Thank you. Now we're going to move on to 10.0, action items, consent. Is there anything that anybody would like to pull to action? I actually would like to pull 10.07, and we'll get to that in just a second. In the meantime, we're going to, may I have a motion and a second for the other items other than 10.07?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. Now 10.07, that's the approval of purchase of Edline District Calendar and Content Management applications. I visited with Paul one day last week, just kind of to get clarification about what all it is that we're buying, and he gave me such a great synopsis, I thought he could share it with everybody.
I really would love to. You know, this is my 12th year here, and I can tell you, since I got here, one of the things that we have been struggling with is our calendars, and we continue to struggle with scheduling things on top of each other. Now, I can't guarantee by going this route we're going to eliminate that, but I can tell you we're going to get a lot better at that. What Edline is it's sort of a bundled service. A lot of the vendors out there that provide what you call web-based content management, calendaring, and rapid communication services, like for automated phone calls and emails and that sort of thing, they are bundling those services because they know that school districts want that. And so we were up for renewal for our rapid communication system anyway, and we have been needing to get an integrated calendar system and a content management system for a long time. So when we did the RFP with the vendors, those were all in what you might call bundled services. But what we're really excited about is not only just to get a better integrated calendar that all the districts would use, but the content management system will allow us to have much more active and timely content on all the websites, top to bottom. One of the things that we learned through the first year in Project Parkway, we were doing our surveys with parents on the communications subcommittee, was they told us your calendars are not up to date, number one, and you need a better way of organizing your information for us. They didn't like it that when your child went from one school to the next, the navigational structure would be different. You had to relearn websites. With integrated content management system, once a parent logs in, it knows who they are, and it automatically provides pull-down menus, for example, for their individual school web pages anywhere their child's attend, as well as any teacher web pages that they have automatically. The links are automatically provided. And then when the child takes up a different class, the old web page goes away and then the new one refreshes. You have the ability also as a parent to click on a consolidated calendar. So if you have children in multiple schools, the events populate onto one monthly view, as opposed to having to go to multiple websites to track things down. And then in addition to that, of course, a piece of this proposal is the rapid communication system, which you've commonly known as AlertNow. And AlertNow is the company that has combined forces, if you will, with Edline. So that's the other benefit to this, is that there would be minimal retraining for our staff members on AlertNow.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Paul.
Mhm.
So now may I have a motion and a second for 10.07, approval of purchase of Edline District Calendar and Content Management Applications?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. Thank you. Am I supposed to stay, Louise?
You are.
Okay. Action items, 11.01. Before we get to that, I'm going to call on Assistant Superintendent Desi Kirchhoffer to introduce us to 3 new administrators.
Thank you, President Feldman, Vice President Mogerman, board members, and Dr. Marty. It gives me great pleasure to introduce a few folks tonight, especially as we've athletic term, reloaded in the South area, is what we've done. And so if I could ask Michelle Thompson, Daryl Diggs, and Craig Maxwell to come on down and join me. First of all, Michelle, if you could just step forward. And Michelle has had a variety of experiences, an array of expertise as a special educator, and most recently working for special school district as an area coordinator. In Parkway, she's worked in the central area and the south area as an area coordinator, and most recently with our collaborative efforts and partnerships with special school district, she had been assigned to solely be the area coordinator at South High School. That led to a very strong relationship to that administrative team. It was very clear Michelle's skills and abilities, and most recently now is going to be part of their staff and is part of a Parkway employee as the assistant principal at South High. So welcome, Michelle. Daryl, if you could step forward. Daryl Diggs, very proud of this guy. Most recently received an Albert Award, which signifies outstanding young teachers in our school district, and is sponsored through our alumni program and Albert. And so congratulations on that, Daryl. But most recently, he's been teaching at South Middle for the past 5 years, science teacher in that department, and he's taking on various leadership roles and responsibilities in different committees in our school district, and which has led him to his latest promotion as the newest assistant principal, also to join South High. Congratulations, Daryl. Daryl Diggs. And Dr. Maxwell, if you could step forward and be recognized. Craig Maxwell started as a high school language arts teacher at, I believe, Vianney High School, at the first stint, and his first administrative experience was here in Parkway as an assistant principal at Northeast Middle. He's also served as an assistant principal in the Rockwood School District, and most recently has served as a principal at the middle school level in Rockwood. Craig brings a ton of talents to Parkway, and through a rigorous, I would say, interview and selection process, has been selected and named the newest principal at Southwest Middle School. So congratulations, Dr. Maxwell. Welcome. This time, I'd like to ask Dr. Bonnie Maxey to come forward and introduce the newest elementary administrative position changes.
Good evening, President Feldman, members of the board, and Dr. Marty. It is a pleasure to introduce Robert Villagram. Robert started his career 11 years ago as a chemistry teacher at South High School. Then he found out that it really begins at the elementary level. And being a father of young children, he has really been an asset as an administrative intern for the past 3 years at Wren Hollow Elementary. And with his base of experience, he is now going to move into the assistant principalship at Carmen Trails, and we are just thrilled that he will be there to help support that population of students. Congratulations, Robert.
Just a couple more district-level positions. Is Kevin Beckner here tonight? Kevin, if you could come on down and join me. And Dr. Nathan Tyson, if you could come down. First, many of you know Dr. Tyson. If you could step forward. This is the man behind many reports as of in the last few years in Parkway. But Dr. Tyson has recently received a well-deserved promotion, and the official title is Director of Data Management.
And Research.
And Resources? Oh, research. I didn't write that one down, but I knew he would know what he's supposed to do. But we want to congratulate Nathan. His well-deserved honor. He's going to continue also in some of his primary roles have just been really expanded. So we welcome the latest addition to directorship. So welcome, Dr. Tyson. And Kevin Beckner, if you could. I know Kevin began his teaching career at Pattonville High School. Most recently, and most folks in this room know his great work as an assistant principal and his leadership in that role at Northeast Middle School. But most recently, Julie Collins is moving, and we had an opening as assessment coordinator, and we're really looking forward. Kevin has tremendous skills and talents in that area, and he served on various committees that led him to and really in his interview was an incredible passion for the area of assessment, and just stood out. And we're looking forward to the wonderful work and the challenges that you'll face, but definitely confident in your ability. So welcome Kevin Beckner to the role of assessment coordinator. Thank you. Thank you both.
Is that all?
I think so. We've been busy.
11.0 action items. 11.01 approval of technology plan 2012 through 2015. I'd like to call Mr. Steve Van Mater, Director of Technology, Mr. Tom Swoboda, Coordinator of Instructional Technology.
Just a few seconds while I figure this out. Yeah. It was open about a half hour ago, but it got closed, so. Okay, good evening. What we'd like to do this evening is give you kind of the highlight reel of our technology plan for 2012. A little bit of background, the technology plan is a 5-year plan that we do every 3 years. All right, we'll let you think on that one for a second. This is actually the third technology plan that I've worked on in Parkway, my sixth overall, and if you do the math, I've been doing this a while, so it's making me feel old. But what we're going to give you tonight is kind of a highlighted version. To give you a little background, first off, DESE recommends that we meet certain technology focus areas. Tech focus area 1 concentrates on student learning, TFA 2 on teacher preparation, TFA 3 focuses on administration, data management, communications, TFA 4 looks at resources and technical support. To give you an idea, as I said, this is the sixth technology plan I've worked on, and I feel like this one is probably the best aligned of any plan that we've ever developed, because it has fit into our Project Parkway goals, and that's what you're going to see tonight. And as you've read the full plan, we've been able to squeeze our action items into our Project Parkway, and it wasn't a tight squeeze. It was a very good fit, to be honest with you. The format reads as our Project Parkway document does. We have our goals, our objectives, our strategies, and our action steps. A little background into the people that were involved in creating this plan. We have our Tech Facilitation Committee, which is basically a teacher rep from each school. Our Tech Action Team, administrators, technology staff from the district, from the schools, and the curriculum department. Our Project Parkway Community Action Team, parents, student, district staff, and community members, our curriculum coordinators, and we were able, through Project Parkway, to actually have student focus groups over the past couple of years at all levels. So we've gotten plenty of input. I'll highlight some of the main points here as far as Objective 1, Project Parkway Goal 1, Objective 1. Several of the items that I'd like to call your attention to. Number 1, the first bullet point, campus technology access. What that includes is the opportunity for students to bring their own devices at the secondary level, starting there, and experiment with that. We'd like to pilot, we have a project plan that would like to pilot students bringing their devices in the fall at one middle and one high school, and evaluate from there, and then by mid-year, hopefully have all of our secondary schools with students able to bring their own devices. We'd also like to look at and build upon some of the blended learning environments that we have in our district. We have Moodle, which is our learning management system, incorporated into every curricular area at the secondary level. And what we'd like to do is build upon that and expand. And when I talk about blended learning environment, we're talking about a face-to-face plus an online learning presence as well. So we're looking to build on that. Another thing that's very interesting, the second bullet from the bottom, is a keyboarding program for elementary students. With Common Core, which is here, it points out that is one of the things we need to be looking at, and that's what we're going to try and figure out. And that's going to be something we're going to have to put some effort and some thought into. Project Parkway Goal 2, Objective 1. One of the thoughts and some of the conversations that we've been looking at is the possibility of the learning management system, the Moodle, moving into the upper elementary grades. We want to investigate that and see what the possibilities are, and even into the gifted area as well. Online learning systems in the secondary. We already have a product in the district called E2020, and we'd like to look at expanding that. And what E2020 does is it provides tutorials, resources, mini lessons, and in some cases entire courses for students to take online. And we'd like to look at expanding that. Cloud-based productivity suite, that's a fancy word for Google Docs or Microsoft 365. What this gives us is the opportunity for students to collaborate, to open up files anywhere that they can get on to the internet. And it really frees up the district as well as far as a storage and a server standpoint. We don't have to store as many files and as many student files, if you will. We'd like to also explore the possibility of digital content and electronic text. And if you watch the news tonight, you may have seen that we may get a little break on the price because Apple's in a little bit of hot water for jacking up their prices. So we're going to explore those options. And essentially, we want to look at student learning outside the normal school day. I'll give you a good example of what we're talking about with that. My daughter, who is a sophomore at Lafayette High School, will not be able to take choir next year because her schedule is full of all those classes she supposedly needs. So we'd like to be able to have an opportunity for students to do some of those courses outside the normal day, online, if you will. Goal 3, Project Parkway Goal 3, Objective 1. I'd like to point out the first bullet point, 21st century library environments. This is kind of a, it's already going on type of thing. Carol Conan has an incredible vision for a library environment, and she has really moved forward with that vision of creating not just a library, but a research and a resource center. If you go to our libraries now, you'll see students working. We have in-computing workstations. We have laptop sets. Students, it is a place for them to go and really explore their learning. And we'd like to evolve that even further as we go. We'd like to look at building more of our authentic learning activities into our OCG so that students have a chance to become practitioners. Instead of just learning physics, they become physicists. Instead of learning comm arts, they become writers and actually build those things. The technology is available to allow them to use the same tools, case in point with our science program at the secondary, to use the same tools that actual practitioners use. So we'd like to continue to move forward with that. Another item, the Open Computer Lab options. With the Campus Technology Access, we realize that not everyone is going to have or be able to bring their own device to school. We'd like to look at different ways, creative ways that we can offer the resources that we have in our schools to the students that aren't able to bring those types of devices. Project Parkway Goal 3, Objective 2. One of the big ones we want to look at is the digital citizenship. We do a very good job of teaching our students how to be citizens in the real world. We want to do a better job of teaching them how to be digital citizens in the virtual world. And there are nine aspects of digital citizenship that we would like to focus on and build those types of things into our online curriculum guide as well. Which brings us to the next slide, Project Parkway Goal 3, Objective 3. This is a chance, and some of this is still in the dream stage, if you will. What we'd like to do is be able to utilize the technologies that we have to help students monitor their progress and continue fulfilling their goals. Things like online report cards, exploring the depths of Infinite Campus to where we can get more out of that for our students. Possibly having notifications that students will get, maybe an electronic notification when their grade or their assessment hits a certain point, that they can work and improve that. One of the things that we're very proud of here in Parkway is our staff development program. And I think I can safely say we have one of the best staff development programs in the country. What we'd like to do here with Project Parkway Goal 4, Objective 2 is take it to the next step. We'd like to look at becoming a little bit more efficient with maybe an online blended type of development. Oftentimes it's difficult for teachers to get from one end of the district to another after school or at different times for development. We'd like to look at webinars. We'd like to look at streaming. We'd like to look at online types of courses that we can provide to our staff as well. We want to do a better job of researching and identifying the needs and the goals for our teachers. One of the things we found out in a tech facilitation committee meeting was there were things that we didn't offer that teachers wanted. And we kind of said, well, how did we not know this? And they said, well, you didn't ask. And we didn't. And we want to do a better job of finding out those things that they need. We're going to have to dust off our building technology teams and get a little bit more efficient with those. One of the things we're going to have to do is look at school-based development, school-based leadership with technology integration and support. And the final bullet point on there is with a little leaner fleet of computer resource specialists, we want to make sure that those people have what they need knowledge-wise, skill-wise, and support-wise to be able to work as efficiently as they can in our schools. I'm going to turn goals 5 and 6 over to Steve Van Mater. Are there any questions before I turn it over?
Good evening. As you can tell, technology is intertwined in goals 1 through 4, but we're heavily involved in the support of goals 5 and 6. Goal 5, Objective 2, all employees will be effective in their roles as measured by Parkway's evaluation models. As you know, you've seen a number of board memos on products as far as online applicant tracking and online staff evaluations for the instructional staff. We're looking at and going to investigate online evaluation systems for operations staff. And then we want to look at automating teacher, substitute teacher placement. There's a product called SubFinder that was recently approved by the board, and they'll begin implementation on that soon and hopefully fully deployed by August. Goal 6, Objective 1, we want to make sure that we have proper funding available to support the network infrastructure. In the past, computer purchases and infrastructure purchases have been depending on the passage of bond issues. It's becoming very well known that you don't have a good instructional model or a support model for operations if you don't have network services available. So Mark Stockwell has worked out a way that we will have funds in our operating budget instead of being dependent on bond issues to replace computers and infrastructure support. We want to review the network performance on a regular basis. A product you approved tonight called Exenda allows us to evaluate within protocols. Our switches and services allow us to evaluate certain protocols like file transfer. Well, right now we can evaluate applications within those protocols so that we can determine whether DreamBox for math is a priority over somebody watching the NCAA tournament or other activities like the Masters Golf Tournament. We can set priorities so that those would receive the maximum bandwidth and the others would receive minimal. We didn't have the ability to do that before. We can assess whether there are people putting proxies on our network or our servers or switches, which we weren't able to do before. There was a situation where we didn't have access to what are called LAN gates, to where they can manage the heat and cooling in a building, and that was because a new install had caused a problem that the vendor couldn't identify. We had to hire a consultant to come in and work on it, and it took too long. We now have the ability to assess that ourselves with this Exenda product. We also had impacted the use of DreamBox in the schools because of a performance issue with the internet. You'll notice tonight that there was a new filter approved called a SIPA filter for internet access. We had overwhelmed, which is good news, we'd overwhelmed the service we had, so that affected DreamBox and the performance at the elementary level. It affected engineer for construction control for facilities. So it's critical that we are able to quickly assess it. As you can see, everything in goals 1 through 6 are dependent on the availability and the performance of the network. We want to monitor and review technology trends. We visit with other districts locally on a regular basis. We work with vendors to be involved in webinars that involve national and global vendors and school districts. We want to review our organizational structure on a regular basis. Are we responding to the needs of certain areas of support? As things change in the instructional environment, our support roles need to change to match that. We're looking to enhance disaster recovery and business continuity. We're going to have a backup and recovery center at ECC that will be further away from this campus. We're looking at the data center to upgrade power, look at water sensors and new floor tiles, several other environmental issues to replace old services. We will continue to support peers, PARs, upgrade Infinite Campus, Parkway Online Curriculum Guide, which I hope people realize what a quality product that is, and that quite often school districts have to spend millions of dollars to get a product like that, and it's pretty inflexible and consequently doesn't get used as much as the online curriculum guide does. We want to establish standards at the secondary level for classrooms. We have a standard at the elementary level, and we'll have a basic standard in all classrooms for instructors by 2013, mid-2013. We want to have an accurate inventory so we know which equipment provides the best service to the district, which vendors, which equipment is aging the most and needs to be replaced. We are looking at a regular 4 to 6 year replacement cycle, so that means we'll replace 15 to 20% of all equipment annually. We'll build a 5-year projection and know what equipment should be replaced during what period. We'll need to build a secondary model both for middle school and high schools, specifically per curricular area, to make sure that we match the needs in those environments. We will continue to have regular maintenance and upgrades of classroom interactive whiteboards and projectors. If you talk to any teacher in the district, they would say, "You can take anything away from me except my projector. Please don't take that." We want to continue to refresh consumables. Those are bulbs for projectors, batteries for laptops, and other repairs so that we're in a position to make sure the schools always have updated equipment, and that will be funded centrally instead of by school. We want to continue to survey the community, staff, and students regarding what do they feel the resources look like in the classroom. We want to look at technology tools to enhance communications with the community, such as the Edline product approved tonight, AlertNow, and other services that we can provide within Infinite Campus. An example would be we can establish guidelines for attendance, discipline, grades, so that automatically a parent would be notified via email that they had an issue with their student. That's if they're on this Infinite Campus student portal. We want to implement a content management system, which Paul addressed this evening for various good reasons. We want to make sure that the end user has the ability to quickly request assistance instead of going through channels that may be slower and not match their needs. So are there any questions at this point? Tom's going to cover what we're going to do soon.
Madam President, I want to compliment you on the one part where you're developing what I call NAGware, that those things that will allow students in particular to have some accountability for and knowledge about what they're doing. And I noticed that you're going to do email. That works wonderfully for us old guys that hold in great esteem our email accounts, but I can't get my kid to even look at email. Is there some consideration that maybe that would also be able to include texting?
Absolutely. We can do anything. It just may take a while to do it. Sometimes it costs more, but you're right. Email is for our generation. Texting and tweeting and blogging's even kind of passed a little bit now. But yeah, there have to be other methods to communicate with younger parents.
I guess, and maybe for Tom and Kathy, I assume Tom's on your email blast where you forward my routine strafings from the rest of the world, and I guess on the E2020 I I still need to sit down and play with one of those. But as far as the, online learning and those opportunities, I think there's just some amazing things happening out there. I know Georgia Tech has a connected institute that's using a lot of gaming theory and as educational tool, and I think that certainly if we can endeavor to teach children in spite of themselves, I think that probably works. And also the Department of Defense in their Human Capital Development Initiative, I believe they're aiming for no classroom time in boot camp within the next 3 years. I don't know about President Jacobs' experience in the late 60s, but certainly in the mid 80s in the Navy, the classroom experience was integral to the introduction. But I think there's technology offers the interactive and the differentiated pieces automated and tailored to enhance the interest to each individual student. So the technology that attempts to replicate the classroom with pre-recorded lectures and that sort of thing, I just suggest that we really embrace concepts of different. And now I'm sure that will present issues of bandwidth and computing capacity and all that sort of thing. But
well, that's a very important issue to address. Recently, the board approved a network upgrade that will improve wired performance, which means you're connected to the network with a wire by 13 times, and wireless performance by 8 times. We'll go from 1 gigabit backbone to a 10 gigabit backbone for every school. So the only thing we know about the future is you're going to need more bandwidth and you're going to need more wireless access to access the internet and the network. So when you talk about cloud computing, we have over 100 subscription services that the district uses. The facilities is completely dependent on HVAC maintenance and other services to operate the district. So that's a very good point. The only thing we're sure of is we need more bandwidth and more wireless access.
all right, Kathy, Lisa, your challenge is to saturate whatever they build.
Have you actually been able to do anything currently with BYOD?
Right now, what we've done is we've given access to administrators. We're beginning access to teachers. We have one school that teachers are already starting to bring things at South Middle. I will be meeting with the other secondary schools throughout the rest of the year to get them up to speed and get them started. And our hope is that August, September, we'll have a middle school and a high school that will be testing it, and kids will be bringing their stuff in.
We probably have 12 special education students who have special needs and need wireless access all the time, and they've had access for a period of time. Our original network in 2006 was identified to provide mobility to staff, not for density, and density being defined as a large number of users in an area. So this network is defined to handle density, and that's why we can now allow staff and students to bring in their personal devices. Before, we had limited access. Right now, Central Middle, I don't know if you notice it or not, you're getting better performance. You're getting 300 megabits, and after you put the switches in, you'll get 450. So the benefit to that is we have added wireless computers to all communication arts and all middle schools and at Central Middle because we weren't able to put drops in. It was going to be $110,000 to put drops in all 5 middle schools. For communication arts, for $5,000 to get wireless USB connectors, we were able to set up over 90 classrooms with wireless devices. So thank you all for the approval of that, but it'll be an interesting challenge to saturate that. So now we can allow students and staff to have campus technology access simply because we have the bandwidth to handle it.
Dr. Marty and I serve on the CSD Strategic Planning Committee, and discussion there has been, what about kids who don't have their own devices? What, have you discussed that? Have any thoughts about that? It's different than like a four-year college where kids can pay for it over 4 years, or a private school where they can, pay for it through their tuition.
Right. The one thing that we have looked at so far is we have a pretty good ratio of computers to students in our secondary schools, and looking at ways to creatively reallocate those resources for students who are unable to bring their own devices to school. Right now, that's about the only thing that we've looked at.
I wonder if CSD should have a buying consortium for students, maybe, that
we'll
we
have
can
to,
get a lower price on these things for them.
If that's a possibility, I'd love to explore it, because I think we found out, we surveyed over 1,000 secondary students last spring, and basically said, hey, if you could bring it, would you, and what do you have, and how would you use it? And they told us. I mean, they told us loud and clear. They told us exactly how they would like to use their devices. They want access to resources, multiple resources, whenever, wherever, and for whatever they want. And we'd like to get as many students involved in that as possible. So I'd definitely be up talking to CSD about something like that.
And there are so many options. There's an e-reader option that would be, they're in the neighborhood of $100 to $150, that you could replace textbooks and have multiple textbooks on a single device. And that could be school provided, because it could be overall cheaper than a textbook. But there's so many options as far as e-readers and different types of devices. That's why this bring your own device or campus technology access is so critical for us to learn about the data of the schools. Also, there are many programs where they have loaners for students who don't have their own equipment. And then you could set up a program where the library, instead of checking out a book, maybe you could check out an e-reader or a laptop. So there's a lot of options to look at.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Regarding individual devices in the classroom and all, I'm kind of used to everyone having the same platform, and I know the issues even with that. So how do you think the individual devices would be utilized in a history classroom, for example?
Well, in a history classroom, per se, you'd have access to multiple resources. For example, if you're studying the Civil War, you wouldn't have to be just tethered to your textbook. You could go to the LSU database of Civil War information. You could go literally anywhere you wanted to on the web to find that different types of information, those different types of information. That's one way of doing it. I guess I could bring Toby up and he would give me a whole lot more.
I really be more specific than that, but mainly they'll be used for individual independent work then.
Correct.
Rather than full class work, right?
Right. A lot of it's going to be for research and finding resources. The other part of it is, with a cloud-based type of solution, we're no longer tethered to an operating system or a productivity system. You can be on an iPad, I can be on a laptop, Steve can be on a Motorola Zoom, something of that nature, and we can all work on the same document. This document that we have here, this is done on Google Docs. So our writing team all had access to it. We met face-to-face, what seemed like every week for 3 years, but we also had the opportunity, when it was 11 o'clock at night on a Thursday night, somebody could get on and change and update and add to our plan. So it gives students flexibility. There's the collaboration piece as well. So we're really not tied to a certain operating system or productivity suite anymore. It's pretty much open.
Is that being done anywhere else?
Oh yeah,
devices?
There are quite a few places in the St. Louis area. Lindbergh High School has done quite a bit with theirs, and we've worked with them very closely. I've been in contact with tech coordinators all over the country, several in Wisconsin, where it's going on, and I've got some really good ideas on how to roll this thing out. So
even the business world, it's a big thing now to
absolutely
bring your own device.
So the Mac versus PC argument is dead? Is that what you're saying?
No.
Oh.
Uh,
You said no.
And the reason is, for the heavy lifting, you still need your laptop and a desktop. For example, how would you like to create an essay on a smartphone? All right, so consumption of information is easy on these devices, but creation may not be as easy. Would you want to look at a spreadsheet on a 3-inch diameter screen? So a handheld device, different performance on the wireless network, different throughput, different applications. So for an individual use, it's more like a 1+ situation. It supplements the instruction they may have. And the thing that Tom hit on is that's the important piece of the Google Docs type environment. Doesn't matter what device, you can share documents and information. But when it comes to the main applications, when it comes to spreadsheets, when it comes to operations, you still need the old laptop device. And something to remember is a laptop's maybe $100 more than a laptop, or a tablet, or small devices maybe $100 less than a laptop. So if you can do everything with a laptop, they're still going to be around. And the Mac versus PC issue for regular instruction still exists, but it may depend on the curricular area and how much you can do. In PE, do you have the ability to take a device out to the field and log statistics for a race? In music, I was just talking to Sandy Collins about going out on the field with a band leader having an iPad. If they want to do those functions, that's important, but if they want to do peers or PARs or classroom instruction, they have to have the heavy hardware.
One more question, Tom.
Sure.
When you were talking about the digital citizenship, the 9 different levels, does that get into bullying? I know one of the things we're concerned about a lot is
Absolutely.
not just the normal bullying that happens, but what proliferates so quickly in the digital environment.
It definitely does, and it's something that's very serious and needs to be addressed even further. We do a pretty good job of it in some of our curricular areas, but we'd like to increase that. Like I said, it's a chance for us to teach our students to become virtual citizens as well as real-world citizens.
Okay.
Just in closing, just a brief timeline, kind of out of the gate, what we have going on with this plan. Currently, the technology enhanced libraries and research centers, that's happening, that's continuing to evolve. We have coordinators and their writing teams embedding technology and inquiry-based activities in stage 3 of the OCG. And we've kind of talked about all those things that are going to be jumping out of the gate in 2012-13. 2013 and beyond, we'll look at the academic monitoring system, enhancing our disaster recovery planning, looking at implementing the content management system, and I'll sit down with Jerry Jackson and Paul and look at what their timeline is going to be for rolling those pieces out. And then we're also looking at something kind of new and interesting that we kicked around as an in-user-based tech support ticket system, to where if a CRS is at a different school that they cover and they're not available, that the teacher or the administrator can put a ticket in right away, and it will go immediately to our help desk, and a little bit more efficient, a little quicker answers can be provided. So, and if there are any other questions left, we'll be glad to answer them.
Just amazing how far we've come. I'm
Really.
thinking back 7 years ago, but so far.
It's been fun, and I'm looking forward to, hopefully in another 3 years, I'll be giving you the next tech plan, and we'll be doing some great stuff.
Mrs. Feldman, could I just suggest that, and Tom heard this, and Steve also, when they present, I think because of the pace of technology changes and because of that timeline that Tom just put up there, I think we should have an annual report.
I was just thinking the same thing.
We really need to hear from these fellows more than just once every 3 years when they work on a plan. I think it behooves us to be kept more current, or the public kept more current.
Absolutely. Well, I'd be interested in hearing, I guess mid-next year, how our high school and middle school are doing So as soon as you have some information on that, I'd love to hear you come back and tell us how you're doing. And how are you going to choose which schools?
We're going to do a middle school and a high school in the fall, in August and September, and then
Right.
evaluate and analyze that.
And how do you make the choice, which middle school and which high school?
Well, we haven't yet.
West Middle and West High School.
We're going to discuss that further in our tech action team and see
Pull
what
it out of
bubbles up to the
the
top.
hat.
So,
All right, thank you very much. Steve?
If I may, one last comment. It's easy to deploy switches and wireless devices and computers. The really difficult part is the development part. Teachers learning about new technology. How do I use a device in my classroom to assist instruction? So we can move a lot faster with planning and deployment of hardware and software, but the really difficult challenge is to develop the teachers to catch up with what the students need. And so we may be where we think we're going to be, but it's a real big challenge for the schools.
Thank you both. I'm going to call on Dr. Denise Papillo, number... Oh, sorry. I don't have that, do I? Oh, right here. I'm sorry. I'm skipping ahead. Sorry, Denise. Hold on one second. May I have a motion and a second that the Board of Education approve the technology plan for the 2012 through 2015 as presented?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Now, Dr. Papillo, and while you're getting set up, I'd like to recognize, I think we have a couple of students that are joining us tonight.
St. Charles Community College.
Can you tell us what you're studying and where you go to school? Are you education students? All right, well, welcome. Thanks for coming.
I think they're both going to move over to UMSL.
I think they're from somewhere else.
No. All right.
I have some guests, so there are some other people out there. Good evening, President Feldman, Vice President Mogerman, and ladies and gentlemen of the board, and Dr. Marty. I would like to especially welcome and congratulate Mrs. Applebaum, great name, and Mrs. Feldman for their election victory and their commitment of service to Parkway School District. I am pleased to be here this evening to share our Mosaics Gifted program and provide a snapshot of the levels of service we provide, along with a summary of our program evaluation and the recommendations for the future as we continue implementing the strategic plan and our district's mission, vision, and learning principles. Before I begin, I'd like to recognize Dr. Nathan Tyson and his wonderful assistant Carol Tice, and Dr. Julie Collins and her assistant Ann Wills. These individuals were instrumental in gathering the necessary data to make the evaluation a success. I would also like to recognize the Gifted Program staff, also known as the Curriculum Action Team, and their dedication to making the program itself so successful, and the Gifted Advisory Group from Project Parkway, of whose members are located on page 7 and 8 of the written report that I brought this evening. If you are in either of these groups or a parent or student involved in Mosaics, could you please stand and be recognized? Thank you. Okay, I'm going to switch up the order a little bit of my slides because we have some students here this evening and it's getting kind of late and it is MAP testing week. So I'm going to move to the levels of service that we provide through the Mosaics program, and then I'll back up and talk about the findings and the recommendations. And so level 1 is enrichment and differentiation for all students, and it is basically how do we enrich and differentiate in every single classroom in Parkway. And tonight I have Abby Webb, who is our gifted specialist from Mason Ridge, and I think she has a guest with her. So I'm going to call them up and have them talk a little bit about how Abby has worked with the classroom teacher to ensure that differentiation occurs for the students.
Good evening. First, I'd like to mention a few words from Carol Tomlinson, who's known as a differentiation guru. What true differentiation first requires, she says, is the realization that all learners vary in their readiness, interests, and learning profiles. And jumping off from this point, teachers can set up classrooms where everybody works toward essential understandings and skills, but uses different content, processes, and products to get there. And Tomlinson also explains that differentiation is all about options and not about being punitive by just piling on additional work for the more able. And I'm just trying to skip along because I know we're hurrying here. Another important component is collaboration, and we try to collaborate with teacher and student. The classroom teachers in our building often assess students before a unit of instruction to determine what they already know. They then adjust the curriculum by content and proceed appropriately. I would now like to introduce Courtney Licata, a 5th grade student in Mrs. Brandy Brinker's class at Mason Ridge, so that she may tell us a bit more about her experiences in the classroom.
Hi, I'm Courtney. At school, I might be a little more gifted or whatever than some of the other kids. So a lot of my teacher gives me not just more work, but things that really do help me learn and that let me advance from others. One of my first things they let me do was for writing. I don't know, but instead of writing just one piece, they let me write 5 instead. So I had a lot of fun making each piece special and individual. Sometimes I make PowerPoints to teach other students what I learn. I made recently one about sea monkeys, and then we got sea monkeys and hatched them, and it was really fun to get to teach others when others usually teach me. When I'm exceeding expectations in math and reading, sometimes I get challenge packets that it's not just more work, it's really something that helps me learn. So, someone also helped me with a film festival project that my teacher and Miss Webb and my parents and our technology specialist, Mrs. Deckelman, helped me with a lot. And so I had fun with that, and it gave me some challenges to work on. And that's about it.
Thank you. I selected Abby to come and talk this evening, and I also invited Brandy Brinker, who's the classroom teacher, who is amazing at differentiating. And I've worked with them personally because Courtney is just an amazing learner, and she just really needed that. So I was thrilled to see the collaboration. Now we'll talk a little bit about Level 2, and Level 2 is somewhat new since our 2006 program evaluation. That's when we began the 4 levels of service. So Level 2 has really evolved, and it's now kind of merged with DIA and AAA at the elementary level. And so I have Jan Shane here tonight, and I think she brought a guest too, to talk about Level 2 enrichment at Oak Brook and how we have reached out to provide more services to more students.
Good evening. It's a pleasure to be here. I am talking about Oak Brook, and I'm going to read the things that I came up with that I wanted to share with you that are going on there. But I also want to say that these things are going on in all the Parkway schools with the Mosaics teachers as well. So I'm going to talk about Oak Brook, but just know that this is across the board for all schools. As part of the Mosaics 2 program, I offer many opportunities for bright students to participate in the program. In the 3rd, 4th, and 5th grades, students participate in a vocabulary analogy program called WordMasters. 57 students are involved in this word-rich activity. Throughout the year, the students receive a total of 75 challenging words, learn these words through hands-on activities, that allow them to have experience using the words and their meanings, and then they measure their knowledge with 3 tests in the form of analogies. I have a sample here for you, and if you want to try to do it, I have the answers. You can call me. And then in 4th and 5th grade, students participate in Math Olympiad. This is an international program that offers challenging math and logic problems for capable math students. There are 37 Oak Brook students who work in teams to solve the problems and share their thinking with one another. The philosophy of the Math Olympiad program is for students to learn math by sharing their thinking with their peers. So it's students talking to other students about how they think about math. Although I offer weekly problem-solving strategies, students are primarily learning math by teamwork. I also have a Math Olympiad page that you can work on. I also have those answers, so call me. I recently adapted the Math Olympiad model to an after-school remedial program for students who are struggling in math. The team approach, along with students sharing their thinking, was a huge success for those students as well. In the primary grades, I frequently invite guest students to participate in Mosaics classes in order to expose young students to critical and creative thinking. I also offer in-class lessons in kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade. Before Oak Brook was an early start school, I held a morning chess club for 50 students and a morning Scrabble club for 20 students. We now have chess club in the afternoon, but it's not quite as well attended. I also am able to challenge additional students by offering opportunities for them to participate in spelling and geography bees. Our Mosaics 2 program is very successful and is valued by teachers and parents for its ability to offer challenging educational opportunities for a wide variety of students. And now I'd like to introduce you to Jada Robinson, who is a Mosaics 2 student in both Word Masters and Math Olympiad. And her mother just told me that she also was nominated and accepted for the Junior National Young Leaders Conference in Washington, D.C. in July. So I'd like to introduce you to Jada.
Well, I'm in the Mosaics 2 program, like she said, and Math Olympiad helped me and all the other students in this program. Math Olympiad has taught us how to use different skills to solve problems with and without our peers. Word Masters has helped me broaden my vocabulary and has improved my memory, studying skills, and habits. The Mosaics 2 program has helped broaden, strengthened, and challenged my mind. I will leave this school with all of the knowledge I have gained throughout this experience, and I know I have been challenged and I have exceeded the 5th grade curriculum. And I thank Ms. Shane for thinking about all of the other students at Oak Brook who have the potential of going above and beyond what is asked of them.
Thank you.
And I want to point out that we all know that our traditional IQ testing measures oftentimes do not capture students like Jada. So it's a passion of mine to expose as many kids as possible to those kinds of enrichment activities. Now for level 3, our traditional state-assisted gifted program, I have Stacy Kloman, who has brought a student with her as well. This is a student that has graduated from Henry and is on to the middle school. And I also like to recognize Lynn Pott, the principal from Henry, who is here to support us this evening.
Hello. Gifted learners must be given stimulating educational experiences appropriate to their level of ability if they're able to realize their potential. Implicit is this is an understanding of how to work with this special population of children. Our Level 3 Mosaics Gifted Education encompasses the expertise needed to properly identify and serve students who demonstrate high achievement and the ability to think at higher levels, providing the guidance gifted students need in order to thrive. The program covers the processes of research, communication, creative and critical thinking, as well as the affective domain. One of my past students, Emily Dixon, a current West Middle 6th grader, would like to share with you how the Mosaics Level 3 has been essential to her development as a learner. Emily?
Emily Dixon, and I am a student in the Mosaics program for gifted students of Parkway. I have been in the program since the 3rd grade, and I believe that it has benefited me in many ways, not just as a form of academic enrichment. Overall, I believe that it has helped me to get to know myself better than any friend, family member, or teacher ever could. My experience in Mosaics has changed my life. In the Mosaics program, I observed a particular emphasis on critical and effective thinking. Critical thinking is basically the type of thinking needed when coming up with ways to solve problems. We did a lot of this. Logic puzzles, red herrings, and a variety of other puzzles and thinking games. In the beginning, I wasn't very good at these activities, especially logic puzzles. I really didn't get it. Since most of the kids in my class had done them in the earlier grades, we started out with pretty hard ones. This made me frustrated. Sometimes I wanted to give up. I started to figure out that I wasn't going to get better or even have a good time if I kept getting frustrated when everyone was ahead of me. And here I learned one of the most important lessons that I would learn in Mosaics. Just because you are having difficulty with something doesn't mean that you're bad at it. If you keep working, you can get better. Perhaps one of the major ways that Mosaics helped me to know myself was its difficulty. One of the things I realized in elementary Mosaics was that in the program, you succeeded every time you tried your hardest and learned something new, even if a project wasn't easy right off the bat. This wasn't easy to understand at first. In Mosaics, I kind of figured out that I was, and still am, a bit of a perfectionist. I felt good only when something was exactly right. Although this drove me to success, it is something that one does not usually benefit from. I understand it like this. When you're striving for something that moves up just as fast as you do, you will never truly reach your goal. Therefore, you can never sit down and enjoy a bit of your own self-satisfaction. There are other actions that go hand in hand with perfectionism. One of these self-sabotaging behaviors is something best described as hunting for flaws. I've been working on this for a while now. I used to never quite be satisfied with my work. I would compare myself to others and wind up feeling really bad about myself. With the help of my own good experiences and the guidance of my instructor, I was able to improve my thinking. As I said earlier, another big thing was effective thinking. Frankly, if you think about it, the names of these major sectors in the program describe the exact curriculum they contain. Critical thinking is the term used to describe the necessary problem solving and logic skills used to overcome obstacles in everyday life. Effective thinking, on the other hand, is the term used to describe the part of the program that includes team-building activities, self-reflections, and personality quizzes that are meant to help you better know yourself and your learning style. In the effective thinking category, activities included group work and projects focused around personal expression. One of such activities was the newspaper dome project. During that project, everyone had to work together in one group to create a final product. This project was especially hard because it was difficult to work on it without everybody having an equal job. This meant there could be no leader. It was hard to work harmoniously with so many ideas. Through this project and others, I learned that I work best independently. I still work on the skills needed to cooperate in groups. Through Mosaics, I have improved my self-image as well as gained necessary problem-solving strategies to help me succeed. It has helped me to know what I struggle with, but it has also given me chances to explore my own strengths. I am extremely thankful that Parkway offers this program. Thank you.
Thank you, Stacy and Emily. Now I'm going to talk just a little bit about high school, and I'd like to invite Mr. Lou Jobst, and I believe he has a guest with him, just to talk a little bit about what goes on at the high school level.
Good evening. If you know me, you know we have to start with a poem. Key for all students is individualize. The key for the gifted is individualize. When they do not see, to open their eyes, to go beyond knowledge, to help them become wise, and when they fall, to help them rise. Our program, as you've already heard, is a lot about individualizing and accelerating when it's appropriate. My position is as a liaison to the high school program. The academy is now at the middle school level in 7th grade, and next year and the year after it will make its way to the high school. Actually, we have a couple of students who have transferred from Lindbergh from the PEGS program, and Barb will tell you about that in a second. And next year, we have one student who this morning I helped register for her 9th grade honors classes. She'll be skipping 8th grade. We have 8 students next year who will be taking honors biology, honors American history, and honors geometry in 8th grade at West Middle School. And we're working on all that and individualizing and working with those students to help prepare them for that. The future is exciting. When they all get to the high school, one of the things we're dreaming about and we're going to accomplish is a course called Advanced Investigations, so that when students have exhausted the traditional curriculum, we'll hook them up with mentors and help them to do special projects perhaps. Simran, who I helped register this morning, has a great love for art and for math. And hopefully when she's a junior or a senior at Central High School, she will be able to combine those two with some kind of special project that we will design together, mostly her work, and I'm very excited about that. I'd like you to hear a few words from Barb Waite, whose son Samuel was in the PEGS program and came this year to West, and we've been thrilled to have him. He's grown so much this year. We're very proud of him.
I'm so delighted to be here addressing you in this fashion. I was here a number of years ago when Samuel began in the gifted program. He was identified in kindergarten as exceptionally gifted, and it's been quite a road with him. He's actually twice exceptional, which means gifted and something else. That could be learning disabled, it could be hearing impaired, it could be ADHD, it could be autism. And so the road has been a little bit tricky with him. And I will say that in kindergarten and 1st grade, he became disinterested in learning. When he was in a regular classroom, he became disengaged. He was even a little bit defiant and a little bit disruptive at times. And the regular classroom did not work for him. And so I would like to thank Parkway, the board, the administration, and Denise in particular, for the leadership and the vision to create a program for these children who are highly or exceptionally gifted. And if you've seen the bell curve with the IQs, you know that on the other side of the bell curve, the equivalent IQs, 3 or 4, even 5 standard deviations off of the norm, those kids are also housed in a special program, but that's with SSD. They're in their own contained classrooms in a separate building. So it's been greatly needed. My son Samuel actually thrived at PEGS. He made friends for the first time and was accelerated and did very well. And there were some changes at PEGS. After the middle school, we heard there were changes going on in the high school. We thought we'd look at Parkway again. And the program we had heard such good things about, but we hadn't really met the people. And when we met the boots on ground, Lou jokes, we said, that's it, we're ready to do it. And there's been adaptability, flexibility, creativity, just in getting a schedule put together for him. He's up a couple of grade levels, honors classes in math and science and AP World History. And then he's a tricky little fellow. He also has a study hall with special school district where he has perfect hundreds on one area. You know, he'll get an F on something else. You'll be like, ah! So that's just our life, and it's a little bit tricky. It's a little bit high maintenance, and we are so thrilled that the program and the people are in place to help these children who really need help. They are at risk, and so thank you for your resources and your recognition of this. I can't say enough about the people who are in place, and we look forward to a successful year.
You guys might have laughed. And finally, the Mosaics Level 4, Barb, Mrs. Waite touched a little bit on the need for that program, but I do have some of our teachers at the elementary level from Piermont who teach in the grades 1 through 5, self-contained program here this evening, and I'd like to they've stayed this long, I'd like to give them an opportunity, and they also have a guest with them tonight. I had the pleasure of meeting many of you as you visited my classroom, but not all of you. So my name is Michelle Braungart, and these are my colleagues in the Mosaics Academy. This is Molly Layton and Shay Brazier. And we've also brought with us tonight Ms. Angela Gusky. She's, if you want to just sit up here, you can. She's joining us. Her son is in 2nd grade in the academy. Mrs. Gusky is very instrumental in the Piermont's PTO, and she's also a wonderful supporter of the Mosaics Academy and a helper to us teachers. So we've invited her here tonight as well. We'd like to share with you just briefly this evening about what makes the Academy unique to the Parkway School District, and then talk briefly about how the program helps meet the needs of this special population. To give you a brief history of my credentials, I have been with the Parkway District for 5 years, 4 of which I've been a part of the Mosaics Academy. Working exclusively with gifted children for the past 21 years, I have grown to learn much about their special needs. On a personal note, I have 2 teenage daughters that have both participated in gifted programs, which has given me even a better understanding of the overall needs of gifted children. Having children of my own that tend to think differently than their peers and experience heightened sensitivities and emotions, of course they're both girls, this has enabled me to grow passionate about my job and understand the greater importance of what I do from day to day in my career. The Mosaics Academy is one program that makes the Parkway School District stand out among the rest. It is a unique opportunity for a special population of students that few districts have to offer. So we have to ask, why? Why is it that other school districts do not offer programs like the Academy? And so reflecting on this question, we believe that there are 3 main reasons. 1, there seems to be a lack of understanding as to the needs of gifted children among many educators. Parkway understands those needs and desires to impact students at every level. 2, it takes an enormous amount of time, resources, and effort to begin a program such as the Academy. Parkway was willing to take these risks and devote the time and the attention needed to turn a vision into reality. And 3, fear. Fear of failure, fear of change, and fear of all the unknowns. This is human nature, right? However, Parkway has not allowed fear to stand in the way of progress, innovation, and simply doing what's best for kids. So, we want to thank you very much for your support of the Mosaics Academy, and I'd like to say that I'm humbled to be a part of this district's vision toward helping our students become curious, capable, and confident learners. And now my colleagues will share with you briefly what further makes the Academy a unique program offered by the Parkway School District.
Hello, I'm Molly Layton. I have my gifted certification in my master's in reading. This is my 2nd year with the Mosaics Academy. It is truly a joy and pleasure to get to work with these students every single day. The Academy has undergone much growth and change since it began 5 years ago. This year, we currently serve 40 students in grades 1 through 5 at Piermont Elementary School. We've come a long way since we first began with a multi-age classroom of only 7 students. Each year, the team evaluates together how best to meet student needs as we grow. These changes make the Academy and the district a truly unique place for serving the needs of gifted students. I would like you to hear now from Shay Brazier.
Hello, this is my 3rd year in the Academy, and I would like to share with you just a few of the things that make the Academy truly unique. Our daily schedule for all students is much like a mini college. Students rotate to different classes, focusing on core curriculum areas, which provides them the opportunity to move throughout the day and release energy, which can sometimes pose problems for highly gifted individuals. It also allows teachers to specialize in particular areas and devote attention to the scope and sequence of grade level expectations to ensure quality content and create a viable curriculum. The curriculum is not only accelerated, but much of it is interdisciplinary and uniquely designed to meet the needs of highly gifted learners, socially, emotionally, and intellectually. Kind of like a school within a school, the Academy is housed within Piermont's community, where it stands as a special program for kids, yet plays an equal role in the larger community. And lastly, the Academy also has a language and culture exchange program with our sister school in Nicaragua. Academy students Skype with students in Nicaragua, and they have organized service projects to help buy computers and supplies for their Nicaraguan amigos. I recently had the pleasure of delivering these things to our sister school on behalf of the Academy and all of Piermont. Our students feel a personal connection with another culture, and this exchange program is at the heart of our service learning. I am very happy to introduce Angela Gusky, mother of Connor, in Molly's class, a second grader in the Academy.
Thank you. Hello. I just wanted to speak a little bit as to how this program has affected my son and why I think it's so important that students are able to have a program like this. When Connor actually started out in school, we were in the Rockwood School District, and he was in preschool, and we loved the program, and we loved his teacher. But fairly early on, she told us that we might want to consider having him tested. She said, we think that once he gets past the preschool level, that the regular classroom might not serve his needs anymore. So we took her advice, and we learned all about the gifted program that they had at Rockwood, and it was very impressive. But they only offered a pull-out program, and so he would get some amazing enrichment opportunities once a week. But as far as the overall curriculum, that was going to be the same Monday through Thursday. So at that point, we decided to go ahead then and look into that curriculum at the kindergarten level, just to see what was in store for him. And the moment we knew that we needed something maybe a little different for Connor was when we all sat down, my husband and my son and I, we sat down and we looked at that curriculum for kindergarten. And it didn't take too long. We were just a few moments into looking at the colors and the letters and the numbers that he would be learning, and he just dissolved into tears. And he said, "Mommy, I'm so sad." He said, "I thought I was going to get to learn when I went to school." So it broke our hearts. It was very sad. But I think he was just very disappointed that he wasn't going to get this learning experience that he thought he was going to get. So it was then that we began exploring other options, and we came across the Mosaics Academy. And we were actually so impressed by what the Academy had to offer that we moved. So we left Rockwood and we moved into Parkway so we would be eligible for this program, and we're so glad that we did. Being a part of the Academy now for almost 3 years, because he actually started part-time in kindergarten, has been such a wonderful experience for Connor. He's now able to learn things at his own pace and at his own level, and we knew that this would have been an impossibility in a regular classroom. No one could possibly expect a teacher with 15 to 20 students in her classroom to come up with an entirely different curriculum for 1 to 2 students in her classroom. We got that, but we knew that wouldn't be able to happen. And it might not even be able to happen in one of the other gifted programs offered in the area. So to have a program that not only offers creative enrichment projects and opportunities, but to also have it have an overall accelerated curriculum based on each student's individual needs has been wonderful. Connor's excited about school. He loves that he's being challenged on a daily basis and that he's learning in depth about things that truly interest him. And just to give you an example, as a second grader, he's writing several-page mystery stories. He's researching and writing biographies. He's learning Spanish. He's using the scientific method to learn about things in a science class like animal migration, and they're starting a unit on rocketry. In math, he just started doing 4-digit multiplication, and he's doing some basic algebra. So it's unbelievable. We never would have thought that a program like this would have been available, but we're just so glad that it is. So now instead of him feeling frustrated that he's not having enough to learn, I get to feel frustrated knowing that sometimes I can't help my second grader with his homework. but we're truly thankful that such a program exists and that it's out there for kids like Connor, and that the Parkway District is offering this. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Now, if it's okay with everyone, I'm going to let the teachers and the students and parents go ahead and leave. If you'd like, It is getting late, and I know we've all got school tomorrow.
Just one comment for Jan back there. It's hard enough to keep up with the "Are you smarter than a fifth grader?" But a gifted fifth grader? Are you kidding me?
Okay, I'm going to skip around a little bit through my slides because we did all of the presentations first, so just bear with me. As far as the evaluation for Level 1, differentiation for all students, as you can see from this chart and further data analysis of the survey responses in your handout, Level 1 is an area where there's sometimes conflicting viewpoints, especially regarding differentiation. Some of the strategies that are used in the classroom are more subtle than others, and therefore observers may not even realize that certain strategies are being used. The good news is that we know that it is important to use these strategies, as 100% of administrators and 96% of teachers agreed that differentiation was important for gifted and high ability students in the classroom. In addition, if you look at the results from the survey from 2006, you can see that parents' perception of differentiation is much more positive as far as the strategies being used in their children's classrooms when they were asked the same questions in 2006. So the recommendations for Level 1 are on page 31 and 32. I'm not going to go through all of them because I know it is getting late and you all have had a long day and a lot of presentations tonight. But these recommendations can be found on 31 and 32. And in addition, Toby McQuarrie and I will be expounding on Goal 2 strategies when we talk about Goal 2 in a few minutes. As Jan talked about Mosaic's Level 2, it is designed to tap into student strengths who may not have qualified for the gifted program through traditional screening and assessment, but they are obviously exhibiting characteristics of giftedness and or academic promise. So Jan kind of explained what goes on at Oak Brook, and we are trying to really have that program flourish at all of our elementary schools. As far as recommendations for Level 2, probably the most challenging part of that is how do we document all of the enrichment that's going on in the different schools. Most of those activities are tailored to individual school cultures and needs and passions and interests and strengths of not only the students but of the staff. So we are going to be, one of the recommendations is to explore the best way to do this as we move forward. And specific recommendations are found at the bottom of page 31 of your handout. As I indicated in the report, I anticipate that our work will need to merge and in turn complement the work of Goal 2 and possibly also cornerstone assessments as we move forward. We heard about Mosaic's Level 3 from Stacy and her student Emily. And Mosaic's Level 3 is our traditional state-assisted gifted program. As we noted, we have experienced, as noted in the report, we've experienced staffing changes and as population trends change with identification. And details about staffing and enrollment can be found on page 26 and 27. As you can see, this year we have several schools that share gifted specialists, and we did that in order to be more consistent with testing and screening, and we now have 2 full-time examiners. This has allowed us to streamline testing, but has also caused some of our specialists to be split 50-50 between schools. So our recommendation is to continue to monitor that and make sure that we are looking at all of the variables that we need to consider when we look at enrollment. The current middle school model, we did have a gifted specialist from South Middle. Debbie Van Ryn was going to come this evening, and her students had MAP testing, and I knew I had probably too much time taken already, so they bowed out of that. But our current middle school model, if you look at the survey results and the data, it is really seems to be overall working very well. One thing that has come up periodically is the fact that we have gifted every other day with PE, which was new a couple years ago. And there's been, you know, a couple of times I've had some phone calls about that, but overall I think it works really well because previously we had to focus on just comm arts materials, and we are now really allowed to explore a lot of different concepts at the middle school level, which works out really well. Lou and Mrs. Waite talked a little bit about the high school program. Some of the high school program was kind of difficult to evaluate with this program evaluation, and primarily that's because our gifted specialists are only part-time and they do a lot of the work behind the scenes. So I think that some of the teachers that were surveyed and administrators probably are not real familiar with all that's going on behind the scenes, and so I think some of the survey results reflected that. Our recommendations for level 3 in general can be found on page 32. And then we also heard about the Mosaics Academy from our academy teachers, and our recommendations for level 4, the Mosaics Academy, can be found on page 32, and you can also see the alignment of our recommendations to all of the district strategic plan goals. We also looked at the budget in this process, which was a really good experience for me, looking at over time how the budget has been allocated and the amounts that we have used for different categories. The budget information is on page 29 of the report, and we will continue to monitor the cost and benefit annually for each component of the program, along with staffing, as I pointed out earlier. We also looked at just overall program satisfaction, which included collegial, parental, and student relationships, engagement and rigor, equity. We looked at mission and vision alignment, and we looked at the program model in general. As far as overall program satisfaction, we got really pretty good responses. Again, if you look at this chart that's up on the PowerPoint slide, teachers in grades 9 through 12, there were only 7 responses, I think, for that one. So as Dr. Marty pointed out, I don't know if that's a really good sample size. We asked teachers to complete the survey only if they had had some interaction with the gifted specialist, and again, that's a pretty small sample size. So the area that is of concern is the low rating from the high school teachers and students, and one of our recommendations in that area is to increase our communication and try to make sure that teachers and administrators and high school personnel are more aware of the fact that there is a gifted specialist working behind the scene for some of these students. Recommendations for overall program satisfaction can be found on page 32 of the report, and again, those are aligned to our district's strategic plan. Probably, again, the most important goal for the areas in overall program satisfaction would be to increase communication with all stakeholders and become an integral part of PLCs as they are rolled out, as well as monitoring and contributing to problem solving within the building. We also looked at the identification process, and these were some of the questions that came up when we were collecting information to begin the program evaluation. Identification results are discussed on page 19 of the report, and again, for identification, this year we have 2 full-time examiners, and our recommendation is to continue to monitor placement data, make recommendations, look at the referral screening and placement process each year, and communicate the referral screening and assessment process and any modifications to all stakeholders. Finally, we looked at student achievement, and all of the data for student achievement begins on page 24, and this, I just have a couple of charts here to show. This is our Parkway Gifted ACT scores compared to Parkway non-gifted. This is our core areas of the ACT compared to the nation, the state of Missouri, to Parkway Gifted and Parkway non-gifted. And then this is our communication arts MAP scores. Parkway Gifted is red, and we are compared to all of the state gifted. And as you can see, we outperform all of the state gifted students in every area. And then this is the Parkway Mosaics level 3 and 4 compared to state gifted in math on the map. So that is our achievement data. Our recommendations for student achievement are to continue to monitor that achievement data, and also we will be continuing to work with PLCs and enhance data-driven decision making on those problem-solving models for all students. And as we roll out our new assessment plan, our district benchmark assessments, Common Core, all of those things, we will need to continue to monitor that by content area for those students. And that is all I have for you. So, any questions?
Well, wasn't there something about NASA?
She laughed. I wanted Shelley to share that. Well, Dr. Marty can share because he was over there and he took a ride in the hovercraft.
I did. But go ahead. You can give the more details.
Okay. Well, apparently Michelle Brongart's 5th grade science class entered the NASA Spaced Out Sports Challenge, and their students, they got a call from the United States government and NASA, and their students won 1st place. And so their game is going to go to space, to the International Space Station with the astronauts, and they're actually going to play the game and videotape it and put it on YouTube, and they're going to come to Piermont to do a school-wide assembly with different science stations. So that was very, very exciting.
Dr. Maxey and I actually was there when the call came in from NASA, so we were excited. It was about, I think, Bonnie, I think there was 20-some schools. Bonnie still here? Yeah, Bonnie, there's 28 schools or something like that? Or?
Yeah, and they took a ride in the hovercraft, and we have a picture
We
of
have
Dr.
we
Marty.
got to ride in hovercraft.
Yeah.
So more to talk about later.
Any other questions?
Okay.
I've got a question.
Yes.
I was just curious, the tests show that we do very well against state gifted. Is there any consideration to maybe measuring, if we can, against other gifted programs individually, like PEGS or whatever?
Yeah, that's a great question. We tried to get that data. Julie Collins and I tried to contact DESE and see if we could get that information, but they don't share that information with other school districts. So in the future, I would like to benchmark against other districts, and we do have a group of gifted coordinators who meet periodically called Metro Council, and we have been talking, the area coordinators for gifted, we've been discussing how we could benchmark against one another, and we would basically have to share our own data with one another, which there wasn't enough time to do it for this report, but it is definitely something that I've talked to Linda Smith about at Rockwood and Michelle at Lindbergh. So yeah, that would be really a better measurement.
A different question, but as we've gone around the district, we've been able to glean a little bit what's happening with the professional learning communities. How's that working with Mosaics?
We will have a district PLC. So, Liz, what is she here still? What is the name of the district PLCs? MSPLC, Multi-School Professional Learning Communities. So we will do 4 different groups, and we have a leader for each of those groups, and they will come together on those days and work as PLCs, gifted PLCs.
I have a question. Can you give me an example of how the program works in the high school? So give me an example of how a Mosaic's high school student's day differs from another student.
Actually, their day would not necessarily differ from a regular student's. We feel like that AP and honors courses definitely provide the academic challenge. What our high school specialists do in order to handle the big load that they have is they, at the beginning of the year, get a list of all of the freshman and sophomore tagged gifted students. They pull all of their schedules and work with the counselors, and then they get their email addresses and contact those students and let them know that they're available for whatever those students need. So if a student is on an Ivy League course, they might work with the counselor to make sure that they're taking all the right prerequisites. If they see a student falling through the cracks, if a student just needs to talk. So it's such a varied and kind of complex position that they have. I can't really say that it would cause a gifted student's schedule to look any different. But I know that the gifted teachers really do try to look out for kids that are falling through the cracks and be there to advocate for kids in their classrooms.
And what happens in the curricular areas where there's no gifted there's no AP or honors classes available? Like, for instance, in fine arts or CTE or something like that, they just...
Well, again, the gifted specialists would try to make contact with those individuals and see how their needs could be best met, which might look different for a fine arts student, you know. So it's not a perfect science, and talking with other gifted coordinators in the area, the high school is always a very challenging area to provide those services to. You know, when I first became the gifted coordinator in Parkway, we had no gifted program at the high school level. So we've gradually kind of added this component, and we're constantly refining it. We have a fantastic website for the kids, and we do Missouri Scholars Academy, and they do anything that they can come up with to try to meet the needs. Lou actually has a nationally renowned cellist that is coming into town in April, and he worked with Gary Mazzola at South High, and so we're going to try to expose as many kids as we can to this cellist who will be coming into town. So it kind of depends on the kids, it depends on what's available, it depends on the resources and all of that.
And this is probably a discussion for another time, but just real briefly, do we have any high school students that are doing college work outside of our schools, outside of our buildings?
I'm sure there are students that are duly enrolled in college courses. The plan for the Mosaics Academy students is next year we will be having a teacher teach some of those honors level courses, but we are also going to be very heavily investigating E2020 and some partnerships with Maryville, et cetera.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Major?
Dr. Papillo. You have some numbers in your report.
Yes.
And I think your brother has hopefully explained to you the legal concept of assumption of the risk. If he hasn't, he will later. Anyway, I just can't help but wallow around in numbers and try to make sense of them. So if you'll join me on a little excursion here, I would appreciate it. Starting on page 9 of your report. Where you talk about money.
Wait.
Us board members are always interested in money.
Page 9.
Down at the bottom.
Of the PowerPoint, or? Oh, okay, I see. In fiscal year '06?
Correct. And you talk about the state reimbursement policy, and I guess my question is, number one, are we, it says $1,033. I assume that's actually more like $1 million and some dollars, I hope.
Yeah, 1,896,352.
I think that's the number you had for Rockwood.
Yes.
And I guess my first question is,
The highest allocation was Kansas City, and then Rockwood.
well, I think those numbers may be transposed, but
Oh,
since I think 1.8 is bigger than 1.3.
yes, you're correct.
But the Parkway number is is reported at $1,000. I hope that's $1 million and some.
1,033,000.
Says 1,033.
There's a decimal point where there should be a comma.
It's missing a zero.
Okay. Well, anyway, assuming it's in the arena of $1 million, is that real money or is that monopoly money? And Mark Stockwell may need to weigh in here.
That is money that at that time it was a line item for gifted education. It is now part of the general fund. And Mark, if he wants to add anything, that's pretty much the way it is, right?
That's correct. It's no longer designated for gifted, and it's not driven by the number of gifted kids we have. It's just part of our state funding.
Okay, and is that a flat figure and hold harmless, or does it go
Yes.
through some manipulation?
It's based on the numbers we were receiving in '05.
Right.
Okay, so that steady state funding hasn't altered.
Well, we assume it's steady, depends on what they do with the formula.
It's been steady up until...
Subject to future development, okay? And so that's basically our state reimbursement, correct? And I'm just saving that number as a placeholder in my mind for reviewing your other budget figures, which I think are page 27.
Yes.
And I guess earlier in the presentation you mentioned there were 25 of our children enrolled in PEGS when we started the Mosaics 4 program. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
And today it's like 7. So has that cost gone up dramatically per pupil, or because I'm looking at a figure, you know,
It
708
has
it was
gone up from
118,000, and then it's 74,000 for a third the number of students.
Right, and
so.
these are the amounts that were budgeted. That's not necessarily the amounts. I always try to budget enough so that so I have a little bit of wiggle room with the PEGS tuition, because there might be a student in the middle of the year, something could happen that we end up having more students. In the past, now we don't participate at all anymore. But the tuition has gone up substantially. I think it's gone up from $3,450 per student to close to $5,000 per student.
Okay, so in 11, 12, this is just a budgeted figure, not actual expenditure.
Right. It
So
depends
that's
on
got
the
some-
number, the
you got a
exact
cushion
number of
there.
students.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I think elsewhere in the report it said there's still 7 that are grandfathered in the PEGS program.
Right.
And so I guess if you look at the Mosaics 4, or Level 4 Mosaics Academy
Mm-hmm.
with 50 students, and that's just the elementary level, is that correct?
There are 56 total, I believe.
Yeah, I think that's on page 28.
There's 49 in the elementary level. We had one student that moved, and then there are 26 in 6th and 7th grade.
Okay.
This year, we have, I think, 26 students that have completed an application total. So I believe in the report I indicate that we've kind of leveled off. So
Okay.
we would not be adding any more sections or anything like that. We're just continuing to roll up.
Okay, so essentially that's 3 times the number of students we had in PEGS before we started the Level 4 Academy.
Mm-hmm.
Were we underserving that much, or?
Well, we have, out of those students, I think 16 would not have attended Parkway. So we are attracting private school students, students that live in Parkway but did not previously attend Parkway and sought out the program. We have the Guskies who moved from Rockwood. We have a set of twins from Clayton who live in Parkway, whose dad taught at Clayton and decided to put them back in Parkway. So I think we're not only serving our students, but I think we're looking attractive to students who may have otherwise attended a private school or
okay, so
moved into the
there's a
area.
recruitment piece to this, and I guess that's where my confusion was. You start with 25,
Right,
and all
right.
of a sudden you've tripled
Yeah,
the
I mean, I've gotten
population.
calls from Alaska, and I mean, people are hearing about our program, and I think, that speaks for itself, I think.
Okay.
Any other
And then
questions?
I've got a couple left.
Okay.
Then the next numbers that leapt off the page at me had to do with basically, and it goes to the equity issue, but your resource allocation of gifted specialists at level 3 level, and again, I'm looking exclusively at the elementary schools. And you had mentioned that with the dedicated testers, we've now got 6 schools that split an FTE. So you've got basically, and looking at the historical numbers, it looks like you used to have 0.4 and 0.2 and 0.8 FTE increments distributed about. But I guess my question would be, and if you look on page 27, as far as the level 3 enrollment at the specific schools and the FTEs assigned, we've got schools a few miles apart where there's literally less than half the teaching resources assigned to one set of gifted kids as compared to another set. So
Yeah, staffing and enrollment is so tricky to try to predict. And what we usually do is we look at the number of 5th graders at the end of the year who will be going on to middle school. We look at the total school population. We look at the number of identified kids, the number of kindergartners, and we do our best to estimate what the population will look like. We also know that research shows that between 5 and 7% of the population would research-based be identified for the gifted program. So in the past, we've had a 0.8, and then that 0.2 would help out with testing in some manner, a 0.6, and then a 0.4 would help out in testing in some manner. But there were so many people with their working on the testing component, it was hard to oversee. So it was kind of an executive decision, let's just have 2 full-time designated testers so that I can meet with them weekly, so that I have a good handle on what's going on with the testing and identification, and so that therefore splitting schools 50-50 was a result of that decision. Again, every year we look at it, every year we try to make the best decisions based on all of the variables. The only thing that could really stop us from getting into this situation would be if we only tested at one time of the year. And some schools, some school districts do that. They have a testing window where they test and then they turn it off, and that's the population for the rest of the year, and then they test again the following year. We have testing ongoing throughout the year, so we could have some spurts of kids identified in a particular grade level, which then kind of makes an inequity for a short time.
Okay, and I guess my only thought for you and the rest of the administration, Dr. Marty, you know, if we need some finer grained as opposed to half or, you know, 1 or a 0.5.
Right. Yeah,
like I said,
that did work out.
It's just, it is striking when you've got less than half the teaching resources applied to a frankly larger student population at one school compared to the one down the road.
Especially when we're trying to do all 4 levels of service. It does impede that. So,
and I guess that would be a follow-up question where you've got the 0.5s, and I see the state standard is 150 to 300 minutes. Is that
that's pretty
individualized per student, or are most of them at the 150-minute level, or what's?
We try to stay closer to 250, but that requires, and you can see that in the report when I talk about level 3, it requires multi-aging, it requires larger groups of students in these schools that are half-time. We try very hard not to limit the contact minutes and have those remain within the same range as the other schools, but it does require multi-aging, it does require, you know, larger groups of students and sometimes a smaller classroom, and so it does impact the programming, definitely.
And I would think certainly the level 1 opportunities, and I'm guessing those are a lower priority than.
Right. Right.
In a universe of limited resources, you got.
Right. And I just had a conversation with Mrs. Johnston, Mary Johnston, at Bren Hollow because she wanted to know what were the requirements for level 1. And we require 3 push-in lessons, 3 30-minute push-in lessons in kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade. And so that is an expectation of all gifted specialists. Now, some other gifted specialists might be able to do 6 or 12, but the minimum is 3. So there is some variance because of the staffing.
Okay. And then the next set of numbers really had me scratching my head, and I did have a conversation with Dr. Tyson, so he might want to join you at the podium here. And I think this gets to the issue of the identification of at level 3 and level 4. And you just mentioned the 5 to 7%. Is that inclusive of, would that be level 3 and level 4 students? Yeah. Okay. And I guess, again, I started doing my lawyer math, and so some of the percentages were baffling me, since it looks like some schools had roughly 10% plus identified just in level 3, and then other schools were down around 5%. And looking at the schools and doing the rough demographics, like, okay, how big are the houses around that school? I'm sure that's utterly irrelevant to the discussion, but you know, lawyer math. Had a hard time reconciling those figures, so I think Nathan did some legitimate number crunching.
Yes,
so
and actually your lawyer math turned out to be surprisingly accurate. So
that's frightening.
Who'd figure? But anyway, yeah. So anyway, Mr. Major did ask for an analysis, and it was specific to level 3. So the kids who are considered to be gifted, but not including level 4 Mosaics kids. And so what we did is we compared buildings throughout the district. On just a real quick technical note, it was a chi-square analysis. This is just in case there's anyone kind of geeky out there who wants to make sure this is legitimate. It was a chi-square analysis.
How do you spell that?
We followed it up with post-test analysis, and then we corrected the p-value using Bonferroni method. So,
Thank you.
Now, to put it into all sort of an easy, to put it into easy description, what it really does is it takes all of the data, it codes all of the kids whether they're gifted or not, and then it compares all of the buildings. And it can say that based on the data, there are expected numbers of gifted, and it'll give you that number for each building. So, for example, Barrett's Elementary, the number of observed cases of gifted students there were 40. So we have 40 level 3 kids at Barrett's. The expected number was 39.8. So that's pretty close. So there was no significant difference.
We don't want to get any closer than that.
That was pretty darn close, yeah. So there was no significant difference there, and that was, we would say that Barrett's was within the range of what we would expect for gifted. Now, when we ran that for all of the schools in the district, there were 3 that stood out as being higher than what we would expect. In other words, more gifted students than what we would expect. And then there were 3 that were lower than what we would expect, you know, in terms of statistical significance. So we did have, just for a reference point, in the district, we have about 17,100 kids who went into this analysis. I did pull out the Mosaics level 4 because they come from all over the district. So we pulled those kids out. And then we had, so 17,100 total. We had 1,711 students who are gifted district-wide, which is almost exactly 10%. Okay, 10% in Parkway. You referenced the 5 to 7%. 10% in Parkway. So that's what the district is. And that's a good reference point, sort of like a middle ground. The 3 schools that were significantly higher than what their expected value should have been were Central Middle, which had 12.8%, West High, which had 12.7%, and West Middle, which had 13.5%. So those were the ones that were significantly above what we would have expected in terms of their gifted populations. The 3 lower than expected were Craig Elementary, which had 4.2%, McKelvey Elementary with 6.4%, and then Oakbrook Elementary, which had 6.3%. So for example, at Oakbrook, the number of observed gifted cases, we had 30 gifted kids there at Oakbrook. We would have expected there to be 48 students who were in gifted at Oakbrook, okay? And so we could do that too for Craig. At Craig, there were 23 gifted kids. We would have expected 54.9 gifted kids. And then for McKelvey, we had 38. We would have expected 59.9 there. So, and we can do the same also with the ones that were higher than expected. But those are, you know, in terms of looking, what is sort of following outside of what we would have expected, it was those 6 schools.
Okay.
Does that sound about what you were looking for?
Absolutely. And I guess the follow-up question for Dr. Papillo would be what does that inform us regarding the identification process?
Well, I think that that is typical for most districts. There are always schools that, you know, don't identify as many students as other schools. I think that sometimes parents are more assertive and students are screened more frequently. If, you know, any parent can refer their child for screening or identification. So if a parent refers a student and pushes for that screening and identification, then, you know, that happens more frequently. If the gifted specialist is a part-time gifted specialist and doesn't get to know the whole student body as well as maybe a full-time gifted specialist would, there could be kids that are not picked up. But again, I think that that is typical. That's well within the range of what research shows. I mean, we're right at 5 to 10%, and I think that that shows that we are vigilant about identifying kids, but we don't over-identify. Whereas we could be a Rockwood that identifies 14 to 16% of the school district. So I think that our screening and identification is sound, and I think that we are doing a good job. These schools that we know that we have certain populations that are harder to identify. Where we have transient students and ESOL students, oftentimes, again, our traditional screening and identification instruments don't pick up those kids. That's why we've gone to using the Universal Nonverbal Intelligence Test. We have just adopted a new WISC Nonverbal Intelligence Test. So we are trying to be really cognizant of those populations and really trying to pick up students where we can.
And again, having the examiners meet with me weekly and going over students that have been screened, students have been referred, I think that we're doing a much better job.
Okay, and on the ESOL issue, I noticed on the Peterson website, I think they have a WISC 4 in Spanish.
Yeah.
Do we have anybody in the district who can actually give it in Spanish? And should we?
Well, Nancy Ernest has translators available, but from what the research shows, the completely nonverbal tests work well with foreign-speaking students.
Okay.
And again, oftentimes we don't want to identify them so much for the gifted program right away. We think it's a challenge to learn English as well, so we wait until they're at a good place with their language transition.
Okay. And then on page 19, and this is still on the issue of the identification process, but another set of data, and that's the survey data. In that middle paragraph there, it indicates a majority of the regular faculty respondents indicated that the program fails to correctly identify all gifted students.
Well, again, we know that the instruments are not foolproof. I mean, I'm the coordinator of the gifted program standing up here and telling you that some of the instruments are culturally biased. Unfortunately, we haven't come across one that does equally identify all kids. That's why we have a level 2. We are looking at any new assessment that comes down the pike. As soon as we hear about it, our examiners meet with other examiners from other districts, and that we all are facing the same dilemma. And that's kind of the catch-22 of the gifted program, and it's why I'm really passionate and excited to be working with Toby on Goal 2, because we know that what we do in gifted education, good instruction for gifted kids is good instruction for all kids. So while we can't identify all the students that we know would benefit from the gifted program, as a district, we really want to make sure that we are providing offerings for all kids, just like we do in the gifted program.
Okay. And on a similar vein, on the next page, page 20, in the first paragraph, the building administrator's response was at best ambivalent, as far as there wasn't a majority one way or the other, but certainly as far as a confidence level in the identification process.
Well, a confidence level or a misunderstanding and not clearly understanding the identification process. And again, as I indicated, I think that one of our major goals is to better communicate what the process is, make sure that our gifted specialists are getting on agendas at faculty meetings and explaining it clearly so that everyone understands what that process is.
And I saw that on your recommendations on page 31, up at the top there and under number 1. And there was a lot of reviewing the process internally with your own gifted staff, but I think absolutely. And then it talks about disseminating to principals, superintendents, diversity in action, assessment committee, TLA accountability team. But I think that the general population of teachers, I think, probably needs to be included in that. And there's a communication piece here as far as how the process works, and
right.
And I don't think it's being communicated clearly throughout the district. So certainly encourage a holistic approach there and get the word out. And I guess that to follow up on that, you mentioned there are going to be some changes to the testing process disseminated in the fall of 2012. Is that?
If we find that we need to make some new recommendations, yes.
Okay. But as far as what's on the website right now, talks about identification and screening, district-wide screenings, and, for instance, the kindergarten process, and it says kindergarten screenings take place during the first semester of kindergarten. That's the current practice and procedure now?
This year, the NAGLI area was not administered until January, I believe. And next year, according to the new assessment plan, it will be administered in January next year. But yes, we do screening and identification in kindergarten through the Kingor push-in lessons and then the NAGLI area, and that's the first step in the screening process for kindergarten.
Okay. Well, I think we certainly want to, transparency is key throughout this. Like most things, if people don't know, they're probably going to assume the worst.
Right.
So you keep banging the drum.
And I have to say, some of our gifted specialists work really well with the administrators, and they get on those agendas, and it is very, very clear. If you're part-time in a building and you have two different principals, that may be something that we need to make sure occurs.
Okay. And then I guess broad philosophical question, and I think you've pretty much answered it, but I guess if you look at the numbers and we're at 10% identified and 5 to 7 would be the national average, I'm certainly inclined to believe Parkway sits in a target-rich environment. But I guess is there a potential issue if children are over-identified? What's the impact on a level 3 or a level 4 classroom if you've got kids who are not, in fact, functioning at that, multiple standard deviations?
Well, staffing, it would impact staffing. Obviously, it would impact the size of the classes. I think, again, good instruction for gifted kids is good instruction for all kids, but the purpose of the gifted program is to provide, the level 3 program and the level 4 program is to provide services to that unique population. And if it's no longer that unique population and we're including a lot of other students, then that would change the complexion of the program.
So certainly the confidence in the identification process from every perspective is really a key here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Good job. Okay. May I have a motion and a second that the Board of Education, approve the gifted program evaluation as presented?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. And Dr. Papillo and Mr. McQuarrie, you're all going to be happy to hear that we're going to postpone the rest of your information on Goal 2. We look forward to hearing about it on Monday night, April 16th at Parkway West at 7 p.m. at the next Project Parkway meeting. And I hope all of you can attend so we can all learn about that together. And if need be, we'll schedule you for another later board meeting.
Same presentation, so this works out great.
Okay, great. All right, well.
We wouldn't.
There were no numbers in that one. You can go ahead.
Since everybody's got to get up and go to work in the morning, it's probably in the best interest of everybody if we just wait until we're a little fresher.
We heard it at Superintendent's Action Team, and it's really, I would just really seriously say it's a really fine presentation. They have undertaken the topic of curiosity unlike it's ever been approached before, truthfully. And so I think I encourage board members, those in attendance, and our public to be there Monday night. It's really an outstanding presentation.
Now you've got us curious.
You better be ready.
All right, so on with the agenda, 13.0 work session, none. 14.0, policy review, none. 15.0, call for a special meeting, none. 16.0, call for executive session on May 2nd, 2012. May I have a motion and a second that the Board of Education call for an executive session, including any record or vote on Wednesday, May 2nd, 2012 at 6:30 p.m. and/or immediately following the regular meeting at Central Middle School for the purpose of considering 1, legal actions, causes of action, or litigation involving the district and any confidential or privileged communication between the district or its representatives and its attorneys, 610.021.1. 2, hiring, firing, disciplining, or promoting of particular employees by the district when personal information about the employee is discussed or recorded, 610.021.3. 3, preparations on behalf of the district or its representative for negotiations with employee groups, including any discussion or work product, 610.021.9. And 4, individually identifiable personnel records, performance ratings, and records pertaining to employees or applicants for employment, 610.021.13. May I have a roll call? Oh, go ahead. So moved. Go ahead. Who's going to second? Thank you. Roll call, please.
Ms. Applebaum?
Here.
No,
Oh, yes.
Mr. Applebaum?
Yes.
Mrs. Feldman?
Yes.
Mr. Major?
Yes.
Mrs. Mogerman, yes. Dr. Sortino?
Yes.
Mr. Jacob?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0. 17.0, recess. 18.0, closed meeting, none. 19.0, may I have a motion and a second to adjourn the regular meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. Everybody get a good night's sleep. See you next time.